Clothes are white people shit. We're just like, we want to be free.
No,
we do
no judgment here. This is not a PG podcast. It's all good. We're good.
All I'm saying
like
is clothes are optional. Clothes are always optional. You're having sex, clothes are optional. You're going to work, clothes are optional. You're dancing, clothes are optional. You go to a black club, clothes are optional.
I like options.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Just stupid.
Music with your host, Miss Mothie. Enjoy with your juice or coffee. Important topics and silly things. And it's hosted by your favorite drag queen.
That's me!
Moth. It's Music with Mothie.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
And y'all, all the credits and all the kisses to Louise Page. Go and check her out online. Go check out her albums everywhere on Spotify. Check out the song Blue Romance. And Blair Davis at Young Avenue Sound. So Louise wrote the song and wrote the piano riff and the hook, and Blair produced it. And they were just like, as somebody that's never worked on anything like that before, I brought a notebook to them, and they were so lovely and gentle with me and patient with me, because we had just a little bit of time to record because things were moving fast with the podcast. And it was on the same day that I was helping to plan the drag march protest. So I was like really stressed out.
That was fun.
And they just treated me with such kid gloves, and they just understood like exactly where I was coming from. And we, over the course of like 5 hours, produced this incredible song that people have just loved so much. So like all the kisses and all the kudos to them. And the money to produce that came from Planned Parenthood TN and their free condoms TN program. So like, let me give them a shout out. They've been really good to us. And baby, we need, as legislation is cutting support for all kinds of sexual wellness agencies, we need as many condoms in Tennessee as possible. We need more condoms being shipped in here.
Absolutely. Well, Moth, it's so great to have you here. And we're joined by DeMonte Knight. DeMonte Knight, welcome to the Trans Narrative Podcast. Nice to see that you have brought condoms with us. You'll need that with Lucy.
Oh, I'm on prep.
There we go. I said I couldn't go back to my mic. Okay, but I found it. Oh no,
What am I,
these
chopped
was
liver?
my free condoms. I have like lots of free condoms.
Woo!
That I got from them. Oh, and they did, yeah. Anyways,
Well, so glad to have you here today, DeMonte. It's such a pleasure. And Moth. So I met both of you through scrolling on the internet. I was on Facebook, and I just fell in love with the post by Moth. And when my heart is tugged by like these posts, I always reach out, and I send them the script that I have, asking them to come on the show. So Moth, I'm just so glad to have you here. And DeMonte, I didn't see what you did there. DeMonte, it's so glad to have you. So before we get started, I know, Moth, that you have a podcast on Spotify. It's called Musings with Mothie Ramen.
Musing with Mothie Ramen. Wow, that sounds delicious.
It is fueled by ramen.
You should get Skyline
right.
chili. Get some Skyline chili from the Cincinnati and mix it with your ramen noodles with cheese. It's so delicious.
Oh no,
without the chicken flavoring though. You don't put that in there.
Ooh, I'm too southern for that. Mm-mm.
Oh yeah, you know what?
We don't even cook ours all the way. As long as you include butter, it'll be fine.
That's what I was just gonna say. I put butter in.
Just gonna put it in the bag.
Yeah, we put butter in
bag and then put it on shit.
So, DeMonte, it's so good to have you. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm like, where's that story? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you're bashful.
Where were you? Can you tell us about the day you were born? What was the weather like?
Oh my, that was terrible. The day it was terrible.
So we know you were naked screaming.
Huh?
We know you were naked and screaming, as babies do.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? No, I'm kidding. So just what?
Oh.
I can tell you what happened. He popped out. The doctor was like, "This baby will one day be president, or second black president." And then he beat up the doctor.
What happened was I
drag and
popped
was
out
like,
and they was like, "Oh, it's the girl," and I was like, "When? No, wrong body."
he was like, if you call me their daughter, I'm going to slap the fuck out of you, doctor. And the doctor was so scared of this baby that he tried to put the baby back.
On him. I just peed on him though. I just
So you're from Memphis
slow
and
him
you're a
down.
drag king. You're from Memphis and you're a drag king, DeMonte Knight. And you are friends with Mothie, who has a podcast on Spotify, Musings with Mothie. Mothie, I've listened to your show a little bit, but I don't know you as well as I'd like to. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I'm a lifetime Tennessean, and I am a person on the spectrum of autism, and that's something that I'm still like exploring. I was diagnosed with a few things when I was younger, but I'm also epileptic, which is which in medical terms is called a comorbidity. Comorbidity. Sorry, it's a scary word. I can't say it. And so, after my last big seizure, which was a grand mal seizure about 5 years ago, my sensory issues have been a lot more troubling. So, for me, like a lot of my work is centered around my queerness, yes, but also my disability, because when I walk into every room, I kind of walk in as a disabled person first in a lot of ways, because epilepsy has just like sort of changed my life a lot. So, but I am very healthy, and that's why I'm able to have a career, and I have a really bustling career now. I'm a drag show director and a performer. My name is Moth, but like on and off stage, I go by Moth. My civilian name is John, and I always joked that only my boyfriend gets to call me John. So that's accurate to this day. But everybody else pretty much calls me Mothie. Back home in Pickwick, they call me Bubba, though. But anyway, we'll leave that for later. I'm a writer. I'm an artist. I was trained at the Memphis College of Art. So I'm a painter. I'm a printmaker. I'm so many things, according to my mentor, Margarita Sandino. And that was something that I've been thinking about a lot, is how to, and a lot of my career is about trying to make these ends meet. Like, how do you be a drag queen who's also a poet, who's also a painter? And how do you sort of try to bring all of that together on stage? And how do you be like a drag queen that comes with like lore and backstory? That's sort of where I'm sitting. I'm also the programs director for a place called Focus Center Foundation that works for the equity of queer people across the Mid-South. And that is what I fund the podcast through. So the podcast is a program through Focus Center Foundation. And we've got partnerships and sponsorships. But Musing with Mothie is really the dream of it, is about this blue sky thinking, this idea of making sure that we're bringing lots of one-on-one queer people to the table, and sometimes allies. But the thing is, like, I think the allies maybe get enough time on the mic. I really just want to hear from my queer family, not to turn away any allies, but this is a something I'm really prioritizing, is voices that are queer, diverse, informed, and reaching into lots of different spaces. The episode that I'm working on right now is with a great gal named Katie Robinson. You can follow her online at Pikachu Lita. She's a streamer, and she is just this sweet, effervescent, bisexual woman who just has just so much heart and so much like pizzazz for technology and video games. So that comes out this Monday. And it's been crazy. We're at episode 5 and we're continuing to work. So Caroline, I'm long-winded, but I really look up to the work that y'all have been able to do here on the Trans Narrative podcast, because I think that it's absolutely top notch, and I'm taking notes, and I'm so blessed to get to be at the table with y'all. I know that DeMonte certainly feels the same. DeMonte, I'd like to hear about DeMonte's career. and have
Mm.
me not suck all the air out of the room as I so often
Oh
do.
no.
No, please suck away.
I will. God gave me these lips for a reason.
That's right.
We've all got DSLs in here.
So,
You know,
so DeMonte,
Okay.
yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead. Go on,
Minus-
DeMonte.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
All eyes on
thought
you.
was gonna ask-
Oh, on me or on DeMonte?
Okay, well,
DeMonte.
So, okay, I have a question for
well,
DeMonte.
so
There you go, lose Aria.
okay. You said
So,
what?
DeMonte, you perform at, what is it, the Urban Rose Club and Grill? Is that right?
Atomic.
Atomic Rose.
Atomic Rose
Yes,
Club.
actually, we was doing this competition. Yeah, we was doing this competition for War of the Roses. So frequently, yes, but I performed at a lot of places. Actually, I think the farthest that I ever went was what is it? It's like Columbia, Georgia.
Oh, wow.
You know, when it comes
Yeah.
to the other coast, the better coast.
Got you.
Yeah, come give us a visit here in California.
Mhm.
Hey, y'all should fly me and Moth out. We'll show you how we do it out here.
Oh,
But I
you'll
gotta
never want
know
you'll
y'all
never
rules,
want us
though,
to
'cause-
leave. We're charming.
Yeah.
We're a
Mhm.
charming sort.
How did you two meet? How did you and DeMonte, you and Moth, how did you two meet?
Let me guess, drag show.
Yes. I think
Yep.
the
Listen,
first
baby.
time we met was at Drew's, and we was just performing. And the second time that we met, you invited me to do the Rumble. You inboxed me to do the Rumble. The first one I couldn't make, and then the second one I had made. It was King's Night, which I won the King's Night Rumble. So
And
that's
he
how we
slayed
met
it.
since then.
So DeMonte is one of our representatives for Rainbow Rumble. He
Mhm.
is one of our winners and also just like created so many iconic, remarkable, memorable moments on the stage. So we have this show called Rainbow Rumble. It's at Black Lodge. I'm the director, and my co-producer is this amazing woman named Shelda Edwards, who is just this queer genius designer and the first friend I ever made here in Memphis, Tennessee. I met her coming up the stairs at the Memphis College of Art at Fogelman Hall. And she introduced herself. She said, "Hey, my name's Shelda." And I said, "Zelda?" And she said, "No, baby." And that's how we met. We've been friends ever since. And so, we have a really strong graphical and social media presence with Rainbow Rumble. We're really about promoting our entertainers for everything, for all the good that they do and all the talents that they have. So DeMonte has just been an amazing example and a representative of, ooh, baby, exactly what it takes to be a top rumbler. DeMonte is heartfelt, but his performances are, I talk about like how he messes people's imaginations up, because once you see DeMonte, you never get DeMonte out of your head. You're going to close your eyes and you're going to see DeMonte sometimes. Just fair warning.
So special that I'm showing my pussy to him.
That's
Oh my
right.
gosh.
I want to rub
white
it so
pussy.
bad.
I'm always intrigued by names. Names are like I spent my whole life trying to find my name, and
Okay.
I want to know where did you with your in regards to that name DeMonte, where did that where inspired that?
Well, okay, so I've been performing, what is it, 3.5 years now. And I think when I first started performing, I was like, oh, what type of name I need? I was like, I don't want a corny name, but I want a name that everybody else has. And I want it different, but I want it to mean something. And I kept asking myself, like, who am I? Or, well, who is DeMonte, this ego? But I had a few friends, and one of my exes was helping me pick out the name. And I was like, okay, so what do I, and when I first started dressing out, I liked it to do the top hat thing, the suit thing. And I was like, okay, so this classic. So I was like, what if I just be like something with like a little accent on the E? And I was like, and I just came up with like, it was like Diamante. That's how it's really pronounced. But you know, but people just
Oh,
say
is it
Diamante. I was like, oh,
Diamante?
okay. Yeah, like
Diamante.
Diamante.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
but you know,
Well,
and it
baby,
was
I'll throw more spice on it from now on.
all right.
Yes,
Ah,
You just tell you tell
Demonte.
me when I'm announcing your name, I want to like say it right, baby. I want to say it right.
All right.
He's like,
And I
I want to say your name.
Diamante.
yeah,
Diamante.
and then
Everybody's so
and
damn country down here, buddy. They said
yeah, they just
Demonte.
like Diamante. Yeah, that's like Diamante.
Demonte.
I was like,
Everyone's
it's
like,
so
"That
moderate.
Diamante. Really,
Yeah,
that Diamante fella. Feller.
Diamante.
Oh, yeah,
Diamante.
really?
So the last name was actually Knight, which was spelled Nit at first. But I was like, I don't think I'm really feeling this. And then like as time went on, and I was like, I'm everybody's fantasy, especially the ladies. And I was like, I'm gonna change it to like Knight, Knight. So
Yes.
Knight is shining armor. So I was like, yeah, boom, there go the name. Maybe since
I
then.
love that. Moth. Where did your name come?
Well, that is a loaded question, darling. Because every question
Especially
with
if
me is a loaded question. My friend Alex, who was a fellow printmaking student with me at the Memphis College of Art, she was my buddy and she was very brilliant. She really cultivated a love of textures and fabric design in me. And at the end of our senior year, we were getting ready to put on, a very like safe art school, kind of a drag show, not really very accurate to drag out in the real world, very safe and very romper room. But we called it the mothball because Alex suggested calling myself Moth. I was going to be called a lot of feelings because I cry all the time, but but she suggested calling myself Moth, and I remember that night that we were hanging out in Portland and Embers Avenue on a trip, and I went back to the hotel room and I like had this moment where I was a little bit drunk, but I was looking in the mirror and I just like kept looking in my eyes and I was like, Moth is a name that makes more sense for me than any name I've ever heard, just period, from any direction. And since then, the mythology that's in my mind about the name Moth and about moth-shaped things and the pattern of moth-shaped things throughout the universe, that's where my name comes from. But I mean, it's evolved a billion times. I was originally just Moth, but then Beverly Hills, who DeMonte will remember and know, Beverly Hills was an old guard drag queen. It bugged her so much. I did my first 50 shows with Beverly. I really trained under Beverly's wing in a lot of ways. And I'd pick her up to run errands a lot of the time in exchange for drag shows, drag show bookings. But she would say, you can't just be Moth, coming to the stage, Moth. So she'd say the Moth, or she'd say Moth to the Flame. And I would say, just like, you know what, call me Moth, 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 if you need more to say. So it became Moth, Moth, Moth. And then the like mythology of Moth, 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 the alien princess, sort of came after years of just like making jokes about being an alien giant bug clown princess. So for me, nonsense in fiction always like takes on meaning and significance, just like an old like stupid ugly blue dress that you buy in a vintage shop after wearing it for 10 shows and zhuzhing it, and like it's had to evolve and it's broken down, so you've restitched it and it looks like armor now. That's all, it's all the same to me. It's all this flavoring that the story and the artwork gathers over time. So Moth, 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 an endlessly perpetuating, omnipresent creature throughout the universe. Your best friend, mother to all. You're safe. It's cool.
Cyclopunks in some cultures.
Speaking of aliens, Moth, you talked about the Fermi paradox in one of your podcast episodes. Can you please tell us about the Fermi paradox?
I love y'all. So the Fermi paradox. Now, I did my research right before that, so I didn't get things mixed up. And I still may have misquoted. I've checked it a couple times. But the Fermi paradox is related to dark forest theory, which is the part of it that I've been diving into more recently. But the Fermi paradox deals with like why do we feel alone in the universe? Why has nobody like contacted us? Why have we not been able to contact anybody else? And the thing is, like, that could be due to a billion different reasons. You know, it could be differences in technology, it could be differences in biology. You know, if the only other culture that is the same amount of smart as us right now on the other side of the universe, but they're all made of silicon, you know, they're not using radios, y'all. They're doing something else. They're doing, you know, they're using the mirror force. They're telepathically communicating. You know, you know, the differences in language and that ocean of difference is so vast and so dark that the rareness of hyper intelligence probably spreads us out too far to be able to talk to each other. But even then, you know, that goes into a greater theory about dark forest theory that might, you know, perpetuate the idea that maybe we don't need to send radio signals out or have radio dishes pointed out, that we actually need to go quiet as a planet, because if we make too much noise, it's very possible that a berserker entity or a civilization could wipe us out simply for just being too smart for our own britches. And
we might have some unpleasant neighbors for all we know.
Yeah, and they could fear AI as much as we do, you know.
Yeah.
They may be like, well, they're not at the AI part that destroys, you know, vast swaths of the universe. Let's zap them now. But if we're a little bit quiet and we don't step out into the so-called dark forest, then no hunters can see us. But for me, like, I want to perpetuate a feeling of hope, of hopefulness. So
You're willing to
think that
roll
there's
those
a
dice,
greater-
basically.
What was that, baby? I'm sorry.
You're willing to roll those dice, basically.
I don't know. My heart is really torn about it because I don't know.
Legislature has declared war on queer people.
New at 10, a majority of the Tennessee Senate voted in favor of a bill banning gender-affirming surgeries for anyone under the age of 18. A study by UCLA says that bill could impact almost 3,000 young people in Tennessee who are transgender. At the same time as the vote, Knox Pride was leading a protest against that bill and another targeting the Pride community. Reporter Caitlin Keenahan explains what's at stake.
Tonight, folks with Knox Pride joined here at Crouch Park to protest two bills going through the legislature. The first one is a bill that seeks to ban gender-affirming health care for people under the age of 18, and the second one seeks to ban sexually explicit shows or adult-style entertainment around kids and in public spaces. Chants echoed through downtown Knoxville.
This is about the message that they're sending, and that message is trans people are not welcome in Tennessee.
Story Van Ness is a transgender woman. So is Sage Pearson.
This bill is preventing a lot of people from getting the access to health care that they need, which isn't just gender affirming, but life affirming.
Pearson says she battled depression before transitioning. Studies from UCLA show about half of transgender youth will attempt suicide.
It breaks my heart.
But as this community marched in Knoxville, in Nashville, the Senate sealed a majority vote in favor of the transgender bill.
Kids' brains have not fully developed. They've certainly not reached a level of maturity where I think they're capable of making permanent life-altering decisions relative to their body.
Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson pioneered it.
If you want to make that decision when you turn 18 in the state of Tennessee, you're recognized as an adult. And if that's a decision you make, then that's your right to do so.
Reporting in Crouch Park, I'm Caitlin Keenahan.
Developing tonight, the American Civil Liberties Union says it plans to sue the state if the gender-affirming bill does become law. The ACLU says the bill limits freedom of expression, promising should this dangerous legislation pass, we will see it in
show Musings with Mothie, and you had a quote that I thought was interesting. You said, and I quote, "Barbara Bush loves the gays." We do not have too many Republican queer people on here, so I just wanted to know, as a Republican queer person such as yourself, what is that like for you?
Oh my gosh, honey, I'm hesitant to say that I'm a radical person because we don't know if I'm going to run for office one of these days. But I will say, dear Barbara, I believe she had a queer best friend that perished at some point. And she folded that story into a lot of different speeches as she fundraised and stuff like that. So that's all I know about Ms. Barbara Bush. But I will say on Wednesday, DeMonte and I both walked around and met with Democratic and Republican state legislators, which was an exhausting experience. Most of the Republicans that, we all arrived there about 20 Memphians by bus, and it takes 3 hours to get to Nashville from Memphis. It's not the easiest trip in the world. We all had appointments and things to discuss to try to, get some of these people that seemed movable or a little bit more purple than deep red on issues like the cuts to HIV funding, the drag bills, the access to gender affirming healthcare. And quite frankly, like most of them canceled on us. And most of them canceled on us 2 minutes before we walked through the door. So that was really not very respectful of our time. Now, the Democrats didn't always say things that completely impressed me. I definitely had more prodding questions that we didn't have time to dive into. But I will say there were a couple of Republicans that seemed like they could be movable and they could work some of their colleagues over, because we have such a huge supermajority here in Tennessee. Oh God, I'm sorry, boring politics. Anyway, I'm going to continue.
No, I'm invested. Please
we
keep
have
going.
a Republican supermajority, and even we have so few Democratic votes, which really stinks, and that can be changed very easily. People just need to run. A lot of our state legislator, most of those people run unopposed. And y'all, listen, this was my first time in the Capitol. This was DeMonte's first time in the Capitol building. Babes, before committee, I saw one of the representatives eating cereal out of the box. The bar is low. The bar is really low. So Tennesseans need to be running. Queer Tennesseans need to be running. Black and brown Tennesseans need to be running. Every disabled, body positive, everybody, every trans person in Tennessee needs to run for office right now, immediately. Because guess what? Most of those wins for Democrats can be from 5s to 10s of votes, in your local districts. And it can really, really make a huge difference. And it's depressing how few people show up for these smaller, more district, more local votes, because that's where so much power, those are your voices and these offices in the echelon. But I'd like to turn it over to DeMonte. He's my buddy here from Memphis. And DeMonte, what was your experience like? Because Wednesday was just kind of really exhausting, but it was really educational. So what was your experience like?
Well, I guess first, of all, yeah, it was a little longer trip because I'm coming from Arkansas, so yeah, the trip was long. We didn't get on a bus; we drove up there. But I guess when we got there, it was, to me, it felt like a movie. As soon as I first walked in, it felt like I was in a movie, but I was like, I didn't know what to do. At first, I was just playing along, and I was like, okay, let me see what these people doing. Let me see what these people doing. But I guess after meeting, I'll say the second person, I'm gonna say the first, when we was going to each one of the offices trying to convince them to vote yes or no on certain ones. The first guy kind of lied to us in a way. Well, he didn't lie because he wasn't there. We showed up and it was a different guy there saying, he was like, oh yeah, he left. He had something to do and he's not gonna be here. Blah blah blah. Then we went back to the area we was at, and then we seen the guy who we was trying to meet. He was on the TV, and we was like, so he is here. He dodged us. He didn't even want to listen to what we had to say. And I think that part kind of pissed me off in a way, because I was like, okay, so there's people out here that really just don't. They just stuck with their answer, and that's what they gonna stick with. He don't want to listen and see what anybody else have to say. But as the day went on, it felt like it was like a rush for me, adrenaline rush. I was like, who else can we get on outside? And seeing the other trans people there that was trying to fight for the same rights as we was from different places, and hearing mothers' point of view who has trans children, trying to push the law for them. It opens up your eyes from different perspectives, and it was more educational for me. And I was like, okay, I wish more people were involved and more people were able to come and just to experience this. Like, you don't have to be very political to do something like that, just to stand with your city. Like, if it's affecting you in a bad way and you don't want it to happen, then you could just go and tell them, hey, I don't like the way that this is going. This is affecting me in this way. But nobody will never know if nobody say something. Like, one of the state senators of the Shelby County area, we met with him. He said he can only do so much. Like, he said, what was he said? He said one person told him, yeah, we hear what you're saying, but where are your people? And it made sense. Like, yeah, like, where are your people? Where are they at? Like, you fighting for them, but where are they at type situation. So in situations critical like this, we should show up.
Am I understanding correctly that you need us Californians to start busing in queer people into Nashville to bump up those numbers?
Deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
I'll be on the first Greyhound.
We'll feed you good down here, baby.
Are you feeding us?
We'll feed you good. None of your clothes are going to fit the same ever again after you visit us. Trust and believe.
Is clothing optional, though?
Well, I had
not
according to
the Tennessee state legislator. We're going to have to keep it real kosher at our shows from now on, because, like, liquor licenses and cabaret licenses and the licenses are called into question. Right now, the great thing about America is we're a sue happy country. So when it comes to the state of pineapples, I don't know what we're talking about anymore. What were we talking about?
And liquor licenses, cabaret licenses.
Yeah, licenses.
We'll start fresh, all edited. Don't worry.
Yeah, a lot of this legislation is tying up a lot of our ability to do business, and a lot of our ability to make plans, and venues are really confused about what they're going to do. The great thing about America is, if there's a piece of legislation that's really dangerous, as long as there are great organizations and fearsome people fighting, usually that legislation is going to get superseded and tied up in court. So as long as it's tied up in court, to my understanding right now, it's not enforceable. And it could be, best case scenario, it seems like they're going to try to keep it tied up in court until it's struck down, or try to draw it out until the next election. Because kind of depending on if we have a Democrat or a Republican in the presidency next time, which I don't know, probably going to be old man Biden. Fine, whatever, fine by me, if he's still alive.
115
if he will
year old
survive,
Biden.
if we can get him there. Because the Republicans are all going to tear each other apart until Trump is their nominee. We know where this is going. We know how that's going to end. So it's going to be just a rehash of the bullshit that we've been through before. But what will be riding on it is all of these bills that we're going to get tied up in court. So, the ways that we can strike it down, the ways that we can protect ourselves is, one, by getting local ordinances and talking to your local officials. And two, by running ourselves. Why is there a Republican supermajority? Because a lot of people just aren't tapped in and think politics are boring, when it can actually be kind of fierce. And I really think that we need a little bit more sass in the legislature. I think that we need lots more queers. We need so many more Democrats. Y'all, they're outnumbered 6 to 20 in the House and the Senate. It's huge majorities. And that could, I think, in Tennessee, it could be easily balanced out. I really think so. DeMonte, did you get that feeling? Don't you feel like it can't be that hard? It has to be malleable.
Yeah, Moth president.
Sorry, y'all. I'm getting
president.
ruined by all my political scientist friends. I don't know who I am anymore. I used to be a fun party girl.
Now you're
No, we love
responsible.
politics. Don't even worry. We have a lot of political episodes. So
I wanted to ask, so do you think part of the problem is there's a sense of disillusionment in somewhere like Tennessee where the Republicans are so powerful? Is that why you don't get a lot
Yes.
of people running? A lot of people running on the good side?
Yes. I think that it's really hopeless. I hate that. I hate to use that word, but it does feel there's always a feeling of like hopelessness and like a feeling of blah blah blah. But like, you know, in our districts here in Memphis, we have had historic wins for Democrats over the past 2 or 3 years. And you know, right now there's about to be a new chair of the Democratic Committee up for election because you know, we've just got a little bit of a guard change, so that's going to change the dynamics. But Gabby Salinas is the current chair who's going to be leaving that position, but she's gotten historic wins for Democrats, and like, so she's created a little bit of a blueprint for wins that could be recreated across Tennessee. And that means like uniting coalitions of immigrants, refugees, you know, Black, brown people, Asian people across the spectrum, and queer people, because that creates a coalition that has strong enough voting power together to actually win elections, and to also identify enough blind spots within and the daylight in between communities, and kind of get people to come together a little bit more. You know, Tennessee is you'd be shocked how diverse we are here. And, you know, that's very powerful. I really believe in the power of diversity in Tennessee. And y'all, I guess when I turn 35, I'm gonna run for president, whatever.
That's right.
You know,
Vote.
one clown's already won. Why not this clown? DeMonte, you want to be my vice president?
Yes, I got you.
Each week on the Transnarrative Podcast, we want to highlight a piece of the bigger stories that impact our lives, the laws and attitudes and cultures that can help or hinder us as transgender people in the United States. The stories that cisgender people want to tell for us or about us are going to be missing in critical details. They won't help us to clear up our perspective. We want to show how we've struggled, how we are struggling, and also how we will overcome.
Hello, this is Aria with the Transnarrative Podcast. And for my moments of taking the mic, I wanted to bring up an article that was published by the Human Rights Campaign. And for that, I will come down here and share my screen. Okay. So this article is titled Human Rights Campaign Foundation State Equality Index, 91% of anti-LGBTQ plus bills in 2022 failed to become law. And I'm just going to read a little excerpt from this. Today, the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, the educational arm of the nation's largest lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer civil rights organization, and the Equality Federation Institute released their 9th annual State Equality Index. The SEI is a comprehensive state-by-state report that provides a review of statewide laws and policies that affect LGBTQ plus people and their families. In a coordinated push led by national anti-LGBTQ plus groups, which deployed vintage discriminatory tropes, politicians in state houses across the country introduced 315 discriminatory anti-LGBTQ plus bills in 2022, and 29 passed into law. Despite this, fewer than 10% of these efforts succeeded. 24 pro-equality bills were also passed into law. These range in topic from making it easier to update driver's licenses and birth and death certificates with correct names and gender markers, to banning insurance exclusions for healthcare for transgender individuals, to expanding non-discrimination protections in housing, employment, and education. all ensure that LGBTQ plus people are able to take one step closer to full legal and lived equality. So the last couple of years have seen a massive uptick in anti-trans and more broadly anti-LGBT bills being passed through the government. But the one silver lining of this is that the overwhelming majority of these bills have failed to make it into law. But it does raise an interesting question. Why has the Republican Party gone so all in on the issue of attacking the trans community? And I think there's a few reasons for it. I think that mostly it is our community is a community that's easy to punch down at. We don't represent a particularly large voting bloc in the United States. There's a lot of lack of understanding of the trans community among the general public, which makes it easy for right-wing media to tell lies and perpetuate disinformation. And more than that, the right wing needs someone to attack to bolster their ideology. They are an ideology that doesn't really have ideas on making the country better, and so they resort to making attacks on the most vulnerable groups to stir up a base of bigoted people. That's their tool. They've been using it for years, decades, and the targets of the attacks might change, but the tactics seldom do. And as this article from the Human Rights Campaign kind of highlights, there is a silver lining to all of this, being that the general public at large is saying no to these discriminatory laws. And it's easy to get doom and gloom about how things are going, but I think this is a silver lining to what our current situation is with the trans community. And like I've said before on this show, this is a backlash. This is happening now, and it's happening with this kind of ferocity because trans people have gained wider acceptance in society. Never before have trans people been so visible. Never before have so many people accepted trans people. And this is why it's become such a hot button topic now, because the far right sees that trans people have gained more acceptance, and this is threatening to their ideology. And that's why we're getting this kind of pushback. So I like to say it's the storm before the calm. That this is a sign that we are gaining wider acceptance, and we're going to weather this storm. In light of that, I wanted to talk for a couple minutes about visibility. I know for me, visibility is not something that comes naturally. I tend to be a socially anxious person. If you know me on a personal level, you know I'm very introverted. I tend to be soft-spoken. And since transitioning, I have noticed that I'm a lot more visible in public spaces. And, you know, for better or worse, I know not everybody who takes note of me when I'm out in public is a raging transphobe, but they do take notice. And for me, I don't like being seen. I liked the quiet anonymity and invisibility that I took completely for granted before transition. And I know that there are a lot of trans people that feel a similar way. They want to move about their lives. They don't want to stand out in a crowd too much. They don't want to be seen. And I know I've personally talked to a few of my friends who have talked about their transition in terms of checking certain boxes so that they could be as not standing out as much as possible. Like, I need to get this surgery so that I pass. I need to do XYZ so that I pass. And it's understandable. Like, they're not wrong in doing that. Completely makes sense, but it's also very unfortunate that so many of us feel like we need to take what is supposed to be a liberating experience and we need to take elements of it to hide ourselves. But I want to say for any fellow people in my community watching this, things are getting better. They don't feel like it at the moment. This is the storm before the calm. We are gaining more acceptance. And for those of us who don't want to be seen, that just want to go through our lives and live those lives and not be defined by one aspect of our identities, just existing and being yourself can be a powerful act of defiance. So stay strong, stay hopeful, and thank you for watching.
Well, that was lovely.
Yeah,
Well,
that was marvelous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the reason I won my FFS is so I stopped getting attacked as much. Like, I have been attacked quite a few times, and I see FFS as a way to make it easier to pass. So for me, it's like kind of a trade-off. It's like I need the muscles that I have in order to protect myself. But the only reason I have to protect myself is because my passability is like -5. Like, if I'm crossing a bridge, Gandalf the Grey pops up and is like, "You do not pass!" Like, I've been accosted so many times that I am tired of it. But there are some times when people, in most cases, people will see what's going on and they're just like, "Holy shit, this isn't right." And then they'll come to my defense. And sometimes you just get people who are scared and they just kind of like walk away. So passability just seems as like the best bet to go. But yeah, I shouldn't have to use, passability as a marker for wanting to get my FFS.
Right.
Anyone else have anything? Or
Plus, you're gorgeous.
I think you're so beautiful.
Oh,
I think you are so beautiful.
Covered in the blood of transphobes, but that's neither here nor there.
Keeps the girl young.
Yeah.
I like what you said, Aria. It seems that at this time, I recently started my transition and I came off this cusp of privilege pretty early on, thanks to the wise Lucy, who has educated me so much in so many things. And as I began to come off of the cusp of that, I then began to really see the world for what it was. And we're currently in the midst of that. We're in the midst of so many lawmakers making laws to demonize our community, and the media isn't doing nothing to represent us. There's no shows that are accurately representing who we are. And even if they are, the populace out there is still negative. It seems that only in the trans community or in the LGBT community do they have a good understanding of like the effects that some of the things that people engage in have. Outside of our community, people don't understand the effects of like Dave Chappelle or Ricky Gervais or J.K. Rowling or of what Fox News. They don't see that, and it's sad that often on our show, it's our skills and who we are and what we have to offer to the world is bypassed because we have to talk about these big issues because they're impacting our lives, and we could go out to the park tonight and be stabbed to death, literally, any one of us. That could happen, and we have to talk about it, and it shouldn't be that way. And I'm grateful, Aria. You spoke a lot about not wanting to be seen, and yet here you are doing the show with us. And so that means a lot to know that you're here with us as often as you can be.
Yeah, I mean, my mentality is that I owe something to this community that I'm a part of, and so um it's not my place to just stick my head in the sand and do and say nothing. And I think everybody here probably has that attitude to some extent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's hard to stick your head in the sand, especially because there's a predator out there who wants to eat you.
Yeah, a Republic. I mean, sorry.
oh, believe you me, back in the yes yonder, Republicans were a major source of clientele, but now they want to kill them. So, well, I mean, they want to
really? The Yester Yonder. I've been there.
Yeah, many of us have been there. Moth.
They got good music.
You always get those old white Republicans who pop in who are just like, I can't be seen with you. Okay, now fuck this shit out of me. Plow, plow, plow. All right, thank you for the hour of money. Now please go.
Oh, Lindsey Graham? Lindsey Graham?
Bottom has bottom written all over his forehead.
Oh my God.
You might as well put a stamp. Bottom.
I feel like Ted Cruz is into BDSM if he just admitted it.
Well, I mean,
oh, he likes to be dominated, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. It looks a lot like
allegedly.
Sorry. If you
Anyways, DeMonte.
Uh-huh.
So I have to ask, do you plan on doing anything like politically minded in the sense of like an office? And not the office, an office.
Nah, probably not. Probably not. I don't see myself going that way, but I just see myself as like an activist probably for the trans community and helping as many people as I can from not behind closed doors, but like open behind closed doors, but not on stage like DeMonte on stage, but as Malachi helping people.
So you'd say that your activism is also part of your drag show, correct?
Yeah, because the thing is, okay, so when I first seen my first drag performer, well, he transitioned now, which is Will, and it opened up eyes to me like, wow, okay, I never seen a drag king. I want to do that. And then I was like, but I want to feel comfortable in my body first before I publicly display myself. So I waited till I was able to transition comfortably and had my top surgery and stuff. And then I started doing shows, and then more trans guys was coming to me, was like, how can we do that? So they was in my spot, and I was like, it's a lot of trans guys that feel like that. I guess when you think of drag king, you just think of a biological fit cis female dressing up as a male impersonator. But trans guys, they never knew anything about. Some of them don't know nothing about that they can do it, but most of them want to be performers. I still have a lot of people who hit me up like, how can I get started in this and that? And then also like a lot of new trans guys, they be like, oh my God, I love your top surgery and this and that. Or sometimes like, you just inspired me to just start transitioning. So like I said, that is a door opener, to get to most trans guys in a way.
It's something I've noticed with a lot of like Black trans people. We typically are like the trans mother or the trans father in the sense of we're like, here's your sprinkle of liberation. You can see that I'm always a happy motherfucker. Here you go. There you go, my little baby egg. All right, now hatched. There you go.
Right.
Matter of fact, so my trans mom was actually an Asian lady by the name of Ivy Lovelace. But once I finally like cracked the shell, all that shit, Taylor, this very shredded very big.
Oh, I was gonna say Taylor Swift. What? Did you say big
Oh
and
yeah,
fat? I was like, no.
he was the Adonis of men. He was just like, all right, let me take you under my wing. And you know, for the longest, he was very low key. Nobody at my work knew that he was trans, and he really didn't make a lot of waves because, you know, visibility. He didn't want to lose out on a lot of things, and you know, he'd made it up pretty far, and he didn't want to lose out on job perspectives and whatnot. But yeah, he showed me the ropes on a lot of things.
Well,
So,
oh,
what's
I
that?
was just gonna say when it comes to job and work environment, I stay stealth as possible because people are weird.
Yes.
I think I was
Friend
working
I know
at
named Dory does the same thing. He's just like, hey, as far as they know, I'm just a regular black dude.
right, and I like to keep it that way when I work. I think I probably tell like one person or two people that I trust because it's just that, you know, it's like you're holding a big secret, but you're like, I'm gonna tell somebody. So I tell probably one or two people that I trust. I think the most recent job I worked at, it was funny because one of my managers was a trans guy, but he was open and he was telling everybody. But I'm more like the secret agent behind closed doors, listening to what other people have to say about him. They weren't saying nice things and stuff. And I think one of the guys followed him to the bathroom, and then he came back out, and then the guy came back in that where we was working. It was like, yeah, that person is a, you know, da da da. They sat down and pee, and I was like, why would you follow a man to the bathroom just to see how he pee? Don't you think that's weird? you know, try to make them, yeah, like it's
That is
weird,
so gross. PR needs to be
right?
called. Yikes. That
Well,
is a
you'd be
yikes.
surprised that'll happen to a trans person going to a restroom. I know that. I've been attacked at restrooms.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I had a person kick on my stall for a solid 2 minutes while I was taking when I was using a restroom, and we
Right.
have sinks in our stalls. So finally, you know, I finished my business, cleaned up, washed my hands. They're still kicking on the door, and when I open it, this very tiny person is just sitting there, and she's just like looks up, and I'm like, so there were other stalls you could have used. And, oh, I'm here to clean the restroom. You're not in janitorial. You work in facilities, but I will watch you clean this toilet without gloves, obviously, and with paper towels. Please go ahead.
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you on that one. I've seen it, and it does make sense for my one coworker. It made sense because he would tell me anything horrible somebody was saying. Like it would happen all the time. Following that, my next question would then be like, so what is the end goal of the activism that you're trying to do through your show? Besides
Well,
the hatch a lot of eggs, create a lot of
I guess in my perspective, my end goal, well, I ain't gonna say end because in this case, this is gonna be an ongoing thing, probably longer than I live. Probably just to get the spotlight kind of on trans guys because people be like, what is a trans guy? I heard of a trans woman. Like, what is a trans guy? Like, people don't even know what trans guys are. They never heard of us, never seen us. And if you do see us, you know, it's like you just probably see like a guy, you know. So just to bring spotlight and notice and visibility to trans guys, you know. So this
effort.
one of my goals. Yeah.
That's a good effort. Like I think like for me, a lot of people ask me similar things, and I'm like, my goal is to basically be able to live without ever having to face a transphobe. So it's going to be something I'll never see, you know, in my lifetime. But it is what it is. I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to live it loud and authentically. And it seems like you're doing the same. Would you say that's correct?
Well, just to motivate the oncoming people and bring more spotlight to trans guys. I just want people to notice us. Like we're very unnoticed. Not unnoticed like we want to be unnoticed, but like okay, for instance, like I was talking to one lady at the when we went to Nashville and she was saying like one person asked me what can we do to help the trans people or the trans guys in the community because they was like we noticed that there's only like help for trans women that that do like what is not it's not trafficking. This what they
Sex
like
work.
they do sex work, and they like have a lot of prevention care for them as well, and housing and stuff. But I was like, it's a lot of trans guys that go through the same thing. Like we get killed, we get raped, and and stuff like that, and they do sell themselves and get HIV and other STDs as well. But when you go to facilities that probably do testing and stuff like that, I think when I was on prep a while back, one person was like, I don't know exactly how this is gonna affect your body taking prep, because I know we give prep to X, Y, and Z, so even in the female anatomy, like I'm sure it's the same. Like they was unknowledgeable of how it's gonna do, react to a trans guy. So that's why I say even in the healthcare, when it comes to prevention care or just regular healthcare, I had got turned away from doctors who saying they don't want to treat me or take me as a patient because they don't know how medicine will affect me. I was like, okay, so y'all just don't know nothing about trans guys, So
Yeah, I actually did a study because they wanted to see the effects of like estrogen and prep in like the same body. And I think I was one of the only trans femme people there. And they were like, yeah, this is just something that had never been really studied. And it's like, what? Oh, well, we don't know, like there are trans masks who aren't on testosterone yet, who we're potentially going to start giving this drug to, and we need to know the side effects. And it's like, I mean, you're still paying me $250, but okay, I'll take it, like whatever.
Side note, do you know why they haven't done studies on it? Because they burned down the laboratories in the 1930s that had a lot of the research, the leading research on gender affirming care. Magnus Hirschfeld, you know the name? He was a leading sexologist and performed the first gender affirming surgery. And he had his labs and all his work burned by the Nazis around 1933. So,
wow.
Yeah, those were the books that burned, where a lot of them were based on sex and some of the sciences, because we all know Nazis typically don't like science, which is kind of why we can tell, low key, not even low key, that the Republican Party is a bunch of Nazis, but neither here nor there. So we know your end goal. How far would you say you'd be willing to go to achieve your goal?
I think I really pushed myself this weekend, and it shows me that it's more than the eye meets. And I was like, I felt like since Wednesday, I felt like I was like, okay, so I can go farther and I can help more by doing this, and on a more political stance by helping behind doors that way. It was more of an eye opening, like I said, by going there. So I feel like I'll be able to help out more by bringing justice to that sense, because people don't really know about what's about to happen and what's going to go on until it's too late. So I want to just be in the front and ready for it, and helping my people that way.
Okay. And my last question for you, dear daddy, is what would you say be like, how would you know you've succeeded versus how you would know that you failed in your goal?
I wouldn't probably be living long enough to know that.
What's that?
I say I probably wouldn't be living long enough to know that the answer to that, because it's either gonna go one or two ways.
Sometimes that tree plants like 18, centuries later when we're long dead.
Right. So it's pretty much like how back in the day, super duper back in the day, probably like from the beginning of slavery, when the slave was like, we gonna do this way, so our kids can be more freer. And then it came where they was doing the national right movements. They was like, okay, well, we finna do this, do that, and do that, so our kids can be more free. And now we're free, and I feel like we're at this point, and now we're doing like, okay, now we're doing this in another sense of way again. Here we go again. So our kids can be more free. But we won't be there to see it, but we know what we're fighting for,
Yeah, we're carrying on a legacy that we've, as Black folk have been doing for a hot minute. carrying on the legacy of stuff, i.e. Stonewall, or was it Stonewall? Yeah, Stonewall for the pride events and whatnot. So much stuff that Black folk have been a part of, especially queer Black folk.
It's just always a fight for rights. Just
Yeah.
fights. It's just
So it's always
a
like
never-ending fight.
like a someone who's finally cracked the shell. They're no longer like a little egg. They've figured out themselves, and they're like, I want to transition, but I'm so scared. And it's like, right now it's scary, yes, but I need to notify you on certain things that you may have gotten accommodated to that isn't going to be there anymore. As we saw with Miss Caroline, privilege is something that you don't realize until it's gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you want to know what's wrong with this country, ask a Black woman.
Yeah, or a Black trans person. If
you really want to know what's wrong with this country, ask a Black trans woman. They got the brute of the stick. It's awful. Okay, are we
I get pulled over for walking down the street. It's like, I'm not in a car. Where are your lights on? You're looking a little too pretty. You might be doing some sex work. I'm walking from a bus stop.
We talked about that in your capturing narrative last week, sex work, and how they're using laws they're using those types of laws to still demonize our community.
Oh yeah, that was one of the big things that that repeal of that law was about. Was police were using it as a means of terrorizing trans people, and now that it's gone, the Republicans are trying to get it reinstated under the belief/claim that it's causing escorts to be dancing in front of churches.
That's what it was, escorts. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
what?
Questions? Is that okay?
You said what?
What is it?
Oh, I was going to ask Moth some questions.
Oh, well,
I love
Ari,
questions.
I think, can Ari and you both go back and forth? Okay.
Sure. Sounds
Awesome.
great. Moth, yeah, I wanted to ask, you've talked a lot about your activism and how you did canvassing work in Nashville and all of those things, and some of the challenges that have come with it, being that Tennessee is such an overwhelmingly conservative place. What is it that keeps you motivated to do that in the face of what feels like a really big uphill battle?
I think what keeps me motivated is still the dreams that I've always had, and the fact that like I only make sense in Memphis and I only make sense in Tennessee. Like, this is my home, and I don't, I want to build my I want to build my garden here. There's no reason for me to feel this unsafe every single day of my life since the day I was born, when my contribution is really, really good. What was the question? I'm sorry, baby doll.
You do activism, uphill battle, red state.
Yeah, motivations.
Yeah, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you positive?
Yeah,
I'm just gonna be super vulnerable with you, and just like,
go for it.
I still just want to be a poet, and I still just want to be a pop star, and I really would rather not be a politician. But I feel like me and DeMonte that's part of our journey because of the privileges that we have in our community, and the eyes that we have, and the people that trust us with the story to carry the story forward from so much of the community. I mean, darling, I feel really, my battery's low. It's been so freaking hard because it's been coming, in the Trump era, we were all stressed out about Trump and his chaos, but there's another, this chaotic storm that we're living through right now. And I hope that you are right. I really hope that you're right about it being the storm before the peace, because we could all use some peace in our lives. I think that's hurting our health. But that's the thing, like, what's keeping me going is still my dream to, like, write and record a song and record a really cool music video where I'm zooming around Overton Park, because Overton Park is like famously a place where so many protests have taken place, a place where so many Gay picnics have taken place. You know, Overton Park, it's no secret that like in the 70s and 80s, like it was a historic like cruising spot. Like to me, being able to do that, because these laws would really like prohibit me from being able to film something like that, create a piece of art like that, when that's a dream that I've had ever since I went to the Memphis College of Art, right in front of that park, and like used to look out, you know, from the painting studio at that park and like have just like, you know, I write stories about that park, and the woods at that park just are so magical and so inspiring and so filled with like so many crazy memories for so many different people. You know, my Aunt Jo did say, don't go in that park, you'll get chased with a knife. And I was like, well, I'm still gonna go check out the park anyway. So you know, that's like, you know, the Overton Park is where people would, you know, go to take walks, where people would go to smoke, where people would go to find a random dog all of a sudden that you just adopt. It's just one of those magical places that's 100 billion different things all at the same time.
Yeah.
So what keeps me going is still the hopes and still the plans. Like all of this worries me, and I've lost so much. Like I haven't slept in over a year, y'all. Like I haven't slept in over a year. My health is not really like, you know, that part has really affected my health and my ability to just like dance without falling over and stuff. But my hope is that because I've been allotted so much privilege and I've been able to achieve so much, if I can just keep achieving, then more and more people will be on that tailwind with me, and we can just like break through just like we've always done. It's really no different. We're just going to continue to break through how harsh the current moment is, because on the other side, I do think that there is fun and marvel and economy and safety for queer artists in Tennessee. And I still see that for us, and I still want this to be our home. Like, and I still like, you know, that's what's keeping me going, because it's not a whole lot. Like, it's kind of hard for me to get up in the morning. Like, I have a lot of bodily pain that has manifested because of how stressed out I've personally been in the past year and a half. And you know, it's I have to admit, it's like it sucks. It fucking sucks. But I have people like DeMonte who, you know, is my friend, and I know that I'm, you know, he always makes me feel that I'm never alone, and that's so much of our drag family and our Rainbow Rumble family and what we do here in Memphis. So anytime that I feel alone, it's not for very long, thank goodness.
Come recharge your battery here in San Diego. We have plenty of space for you.
I like San Diego. Yeah, it sounds lovely. It sounds lovely. That sunshine sounds nice.
We got a nice beach. We have the best Mexican food north of the border. We'd love to have you.
Oh my gosh, it sounds marvelous. I'd love to visit all of you. You've all just been so marvelous. Thank you for just like being curious about our lives here in Memphis. It's, you know, it's a wild ride.
Of course. Lucy, did you want to ask another question, or do you want me to?
Oh no, you can.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, you've talked a lot about your art. You are a poet, you're a writer, you get on stage and perform, you do clothing design, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
I cut clothes up and glue them back together.
Same difference. that takes art, that takes artisanship. So yeah, that counts. So I feel like artists all have something that they want to convey about themselves when they do their art. Are there any things in particular that you're trying to say about yourself through your art?
Even incredibly small and vulnerable things can also fight dragons.
It's beautiful.
That's what it all boils down to at the end of the day, I think.
Nice. So you've been doing this for a while. You've been performing for how many years?
Since 2016 was when I did my first like formal club gig. So it's 2023 now. That's 9 years. That's weird. That don't sound right.
No, 2016 was last year.
You're telling me
that's what I tell myself.
The 2001 was just like 5 years ago.
But yeah,
right.
That's
You-
that's almost 20 years ago.
No,
15,
no,
18
no, 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 no,
years.
no, 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 no. It was 5 years ago.
All right.
Y'all, we ain't
That
got
makes you
flip
feel
phones
better.
anymore. Oh wait, that's not true. There are flip phones again. Never mind.
It's 5 years ago. Five.
Cinco.
There's definitely not a show about the 90s already, so.
There's a 90s show?
Yeah, it's called That 90s Show. Yeah.
Oh my god. No.
Spin off of that 70s show. Yep.
Yeah, it is. Yep, Red and Kitty. Eric and Donna's daughter comes back. Leah Foreman, of course.
Right.
Leah, Star
Wow.
Wars, named middle name, something or another. Yeah, that 90s show, 1995, which was, by the way, almost 30 years ago.
Stop. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me? 1995, I was 10.
Yeah,
It's
that's
fine.
30,
We're
30 years
ages.
ago.
It's
30
cool.
years ago. You're almost hitting, what was that big number or
Yeah,
whatever?
39 this year. I know.
Ah!
Hey, you look good for it, though. You look real good for it.
Yeah, just.
9/11 was over 20 years ago. There's kids in high school that are being taught that as a history lesson.
Kids in college.
Oh, they're in college now.
Yep,
I was
they're
in
college now.
elementary when it happened.
Yep.
I was
Yep.
in high
Yeah,
school.
I was in my third grade.
Yeah.
Anna
Yeah.
threw up.
Aria wasn't born yet.
I didn't understand what was going on.
That's
was
right. I
happy.
wasn't born yet. That's correct.
I was happy to go home. I don't know. I still didn't understand. They was like, go, everybody just go home. I was like, okay.
Oh, yeah. When they grounded the because I was a part of the Right Flight program where they let like high schoolers fly planes and whatnot. We were flying, then like suddenly they grounded us, and I'm like, what's going on? And then we just saw all these F-16s take off, and then they're like, well, you're going home, and then they just drove us home, and I'm like, bad. I'm cool with it.
Wow.
Anyway, so Moth, as you were saying about your 8 years ago of doing drag now.
I guess so. I'm bad at math. Gay people are bad at math. You know that.
8 years ago. Yeah.
I've been pulled by the current for a long time. I've been really lucky.
And now you're getting old like me.
Oh, 7 years. I'm
Not
sorry.
quite-
It's 7 years.
Not
It's
quite
7 years.
that old yet.
Not that old? Oh, oh my body.
You speak as though I'm decrepit, elderly.
You're like, what,
You've been-
35?
Geriatric.
35,
You've been doing this
right?
performance
From
for
experience.
46 years. How does it feel to be over the hill?
No, that's Stella.
No, but I was gonna ask, so you've been doing performing for years. You've been doing activism for a long time. What's if you were to give a message to the baby queers, the ones who have just gotten into performance, or the ones that are just, coming out into the world, what would be your message for them?
Oh God, Dad, do you wanna tackle that?
Yeah, Dad.
DeMonte?
Well, my message is for the new people that's just, well, first of all, I would say a lot of new people that are just coming out, especially doing, I'm gonna say, okay, from two perspectives. One perspective, I guess the show perspective, you said for the new performers. Don't get too cocky. I think that's where a lot of them mess up at. They come out too cocky and not humble, and they think they know it all and they can do everything, and then they go head over heels and crash. So don't come out as that. Always ask for help. It ain't gonna have to ask questions. Am I doing my makeup right? And be you. Like, don't try to listen what other people trying to put on you while they have you there. Try to turn you into something that you're not, and you get lost in the sauce, and you don't know who you are. So that's one way. And from transitional point of view, what I say is take your time, and your journey is different from everybody else's journey, because I think I was always comparing myself when I first started with other trans guys. I was like, it's a year now. I ain't got a beard, or my voice having this and that. And sometimes they can cause very much of dysphoria So just go your own pace. Your body is different, and your body's not like the next one. And one day, you will be that person you envision that you see past the mirror. Because I know you look at the mirror, you see this, but I always look at the person past the mirror. So just take your time. It's a journey. Enjoy it, and it has its ups and downs. Everything ain't gonna be peaches and cream.
Nice. And Moth, I have one more question. This is going to be the most hard-hitting one that I've had so far. So be prepared. Do you watch Pose? And if so, who's your favorite character?
I do watch Pose. I think
I knew
probably
it.
Blanca. Probably
Blanca's
Blanca.
fantastic.
Because I've always, as somebody that has had a lot of social troubles throughout my life, which a lot of it came from, I was raised by thankfully, like two really lovely, sweet people, two great, exuberant parents that I think society really just suffocated them in a lot of ways. And for me, my dad and my mom and my sister, we all sort of work to be caretakers, and we don't mean to be, but we're all just blabbermouths, and kind of, we're the heart of most rooms that we walk into. And it's something that I take a lot of pride in, and I think that I brought that sense of wholesomeness into my drag. And I think that none of my messy drag children appreciated it at all for many years, and they're ungrateful little sloths. But they're all honestly fabulous. But I remember once Honeymoon, one of my drag daughters, she was like, "You're always trying to cook for us." I was like, well, yeah, I'm trying to share my resources so that none of you fuckers die. But that, so I really I feel Blanca's, I felt a lot of her story in my own very small, literally very cracker white kind of a way,
All right, good. Blanca was the correct answer, so thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that this was a test.
That's right. This was a test, and you passed. Pray tell would have also been an acceptable answer. So
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, that's what I got.
What's your favorite book and why?
Oh, my favorite book. Even it's sad. It's what the child called It, and I love it because it speaks. I don't know if anyone read it, but that's one of my favorites. It's about this little boy who just grew up being treated badly by his mother and stuff, and then I think he came up with a part two, Dave, or one of them. I forgot the second part of it. But the reason why is because it shows me no matter what I was going through at that moment, that it was somebody out there or somebody who was out there that went through way worse, and he still ended up coming out writing books and making money and become a publisher and became somebody in life. He went through a lot within his own family and was really, really mistreated. And that was one of my favorite books.
Would you like to say going forward, Diamante, in light of the current atmosphere that we as members of this marginalized community are facing? What would you like to say?
What I would like to say is pretty much, I'm going to just elaborate on what I went on earlier, is that I hope us as a community could get together as one, because I feel like this is the only way that we could make this happen, to become more comfortable within our rights. Like I said earlier, it back in the day, it just didn't happen. They just sit around on their phones and stuff. Back then, they didn't have phones, but they didn't sit around. They made moves, and they made large sacrifices, like their lives. So sacrifices was made, and I feel like we kind of stepped back a lot since then. We got comfortable, and now it's our time to fight for our rights as humans. But everybody is comfortable in this where they at, and they waiting on somebody to just magically pop up and do it. But it's not going to happen like that. We have to come together as a union, as a group. So, like when they say something at work, if you see something, say something. And in this group, we need to start saying something because we starting to see it. And if nobody don't make a move, even one person not going to do it on their own, then like it can go bad or it can go good. But we need to come together in this sense because things is really, really, really becoming bad. Think of the future kids. That's how I put it. That's what keep me motivated on doing what I do. I have a son. So I think of him. What if he was to want to be trans or come out gay or, becoming the same spectrum I'm in years on down the line, but now all these laws been passed where he can't even be himself when my generation could have fought for that. You know what I'm saying? So that's all I'm saying. That's what I want to say.
This is a pretty big moment that we're facing as a community. Moth. Mm-hmm. What would you like to say for all of us to hear as we move forward in our day-to-day lives? What would you like for us to keep in mind as we go forward?
This stuff cannot ruin your health. Do not let this stuff ruin your health. Because that is part of how fascism wins, because when it grinds against you and you get so tired that you can't even just like pay attention anymore, that is when we are in red alert. And that is when it's time to drink some coffee and perk up and do your homework and put your privileged ass where your mouth is. As a good friend of mine told myself the other day, and I keep thinking about it, because the thing is, like, you have the time. Whoever you are listening, whatever state you're in, you have the time to do something about it. I promise that if you don't feel like you have the time, you can find the time, because all of these things concern you and your body, your access to healthcare, your neighbor's ability to surveil you and your gender expression. It's a lot. And the thing is, it's ridiculous because most Americans don't care. They don't care about any of this in the good way, and the in the positive, like, you keep your side of the street clean, we'll keep our side of the street clean, that kind of way, the way that America tends to operate generally. But there are yahoos that are scapegoating our community for the grievances of everybody, and it happens every 50 to 60 years. It's dumb, it's boring, but it does suck the life out of you if you linger on it. I know, like I said, I haven't slept in over a year. My body does not really feel very good. When I dance, I don't dance. I don't feel like I dance very fiercely right now because I'm so tired and my body hurts all the time. But I know that this time in my life and this time in history is about learning to push through that so that it will be better on the other side. Honestly, Arya just seemed like an angel from heaven, and I hope that she's an oracle, and I hope that she's right, that we're going to be done with the storm eventually and we'll get some peace, because my heart just wants to dance and write poems and make pop songs like my heart has always wanted to, and I've always dreamt, and I want to do it here in Memphis. So that's all I gotta say, is nobody stop dreaming and don't let it ruin your health, because they're not gonna win.
glad to have you here today, as always.
You called me old, but it was a
She's
pleasure.
decaying.
Wait,
She's in the ground. She's worm food
I'm
now.
hiding. Not old.
Wait, did I say old? Okay, I'll do it again. Oh my God, Lucy, what a great episode. We had a great old time.
You called Lucy
It's a
old.
pleasure having me on your podcast.
It's not my podcast, it's our podcast.
Oh, you're right. It is our podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you on our podcast.
You know that
Jesus
irritates
Christ,
me when you say my pod. When you say my, it makes me mad. Ours.
Oh.
Sorry. Anyway,
I thought this was my podcast. I didn't realize I walked into the wrong room.
It's the Soviet Union style. It is our podcast, but we all know who's really in charge here.
Great to see y'all, comrades. Yeah, I was about to say there's only one dictator among us.
No, hardly any dictator here.
So if I were to stick my dick in a potato, would that make me a dictator?
It'd make you
honestly, depending on where you get them from, some of the Sonics around here really do serve some dictators.
Okay. So anyway, Aria, let's get it. So okay, anyway, we're gonna do that one more time. So oh my God, Lucy, it was so great to have you here today, as always.
You know it. It's always a pleasure to be on our podcast.
Absolutely. Yes, and Aria, it's so good to have you here again with us. I love having you here.
My Soviet Union joke was funny. You better include that in the final cut. Oh my God, Caroline, it was so nice being here with you.
Yes, oh my God, and Moth and DeMonte Knight, thank you both for being here with us today.
Thank you for having us.
It's been so good, honey. Like, thank you so much for just like giving us space. And if you ever want to know who I am, just you know how cars go. I'm the reason that happens. So just thank me for all that. And DeMonte, you see those fluffy things in the sky? They're called clouds.
Oh, yeah.
He's the reason those are up there. So give
Yeah,
us our
Mommy.
flowers while we're here.
Thank you, Mommy, for giving us the gift of combustible engines. And Daddy, I want to thank you for the clouds and
You're
the moon
welcome.
and the sun. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you, Mommy.
You're welcome.
We love you, baby doll.
I want to reiterate for our audience that it's not a dictatorship. I communicate with mass emails all the time to the Facebook page that Aria doesn't look at about once a week. So,
But also, we have to tell the audience that Caroline changes history by eliminating people and making them vanish from history books.
no, I don't do that. She knows better.
Caroline has threatened me with the gulags on multiple occasions. This is a cry for help. Please save me.
What about the stroganoff she feeds us? We never get to eat anything but stroganoff and roast.
Leftover lasagna.
It's vegan lasagna. It's vegan lasagna with impossible meat.
Oh, hell no. Oh, hell. I'm vegetarian, but that's a step too far.
You haven't had it. It's so delicious. No, impossible meat, if you do it right, is pretty good. You just got to get past the pass that it's super processed.
You just got to eat tofu. Tofu is amazing.
It's only a little processed.
Just a little bit. A lot. Anyway, okay, Aria, Lucy, I need to ask you both just a few more questions, but Aria, Lucy, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah,
Aria.
it was a pleasure. Yeah, like Caroline and be like, he's a mad, or you can be like, oh my God.
We have 2 interviews next Saturday, and you're not both in it. So Aria's and Lucy are separated with 2 different interviews.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, bye you two.
It was lovely. It was so
Bye-bye.
nice meeting y'all. Thank you for the lovely
I love you both
questions.
having here. It's the best. I love having you both here. Okay, bye. And Moth. It was so good. I hope you enjoyed this time today.
It was wonderful. Thank y'all for just allowing me to come to this table. And what an exuberant, smart bunch of people. I'm so excited to join Vape Club again in the future.
Yes.
Dear listeners, do as we say, not as we do. Sometimes take care of your lungs, drink lots of water.
We'll have you on here in April when we get to meet Jenna Lee Dunn, Jenna on Fire.
Jenna's one of my best friends.
Yes,
I love Jenna.
You'll get to be in the position of probably Aria, so you might be paired with Lucy, and you'll be in the spot of Aria and taking on those questions with us and really getting to learn Jenna.
So I'll be asking Jenna the hard-hitting questions. We're going to get the soft interior details.
I cannot wait. Absolutely cannot wait. So, but we can't stay on Zoom too much longer because then it won't upload to my editing app. So,
okay, babe. Hey, Caroline, it was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. DeMonte, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank
Knocked
you.
it
You
out of
both
the park,
take care.
Daddy.
All righty. And Moss, you need to do that. Hit me up for your massage.
This week, I'm gonna text you. I'm gonna text you today. I love you, buddy. Okay.
All right.
Bye, y'all.
I'm
gonna go eat something. Bye, y'all.
Bye. Bye-bye now. Take care. Fantastic.